Welcome back to Obscurus Gaming, and today we're taking a look at some Switch games from this past year that you might have overlooked. Honestly, with the Switch nearing its end of life here, I feel like 2024 was a bit of a weak year when it came to new games for the console. So here's a look at 10 different games I played that are worth your time. I could have done a full review for some of these, but just haven't had much time. Anyways, they are still worth your attention, so in no particular order, let's take a look. Up first is Nikoderiko, The Magical World. This is an old school 2.5D platforming game that combines ideas from the Crash games with some ideas from Donkey Kong Country. If I had any complaints about Nikoderiko, it's that it is very derivative and steals pretty much all of its ideas from those franchises, but it does so decently well. It has a fun, vibrant look. The gameplay is simple but polished and has local co-op throughout. Even the music was made by David Wise, one of the more famous video game composers of all time. It's also made by the team that made the very underrated platforming game from a few years ago, Marsupilami Hub Adventure, which I'll link to here. I actually did review it a couple years back. Regardless, this is a fun little game that I think is worth a spot on this list. Gylt is an indie puzzle platforming game where you are trying to break out of a sinking ship and discover the mystery of some of its passengers. The style of the game is kind of like those Little Nightmares games or that Bramble the Mountain King game from a couple years ago, which basically means it uses atmosphere and its strange environment as the main gameplay hook. There are some trial and error elements to the game, which might frustrate anyone that's never played a game quite in this genre, but I feel like it came and went this year with pretty much no fanfare, and it certainly deserves a little bit of your attention. Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus, released this summer from the consistently excellent publisher Humble Games, is a 2D platforming Metroidvania, where you explore a beautiful Japanese universe. I know Metroidvania seem to be a dime a dozen these days, but this should be played by any fans of the genre. Now, the game is quite difficult and challenges your platforming abilities and leans more into your stick skills versus, say, the exploration elements of a normal Metroidvania. I haven't had a chance to finish the game fully myself, but I do feel like it might get lost in the crowded Metroidvania universe, and it really shouldn't be. And it will probably end up being my favorite Metroidvania of 2024. So there have oddly been like 7 Smurfs games released on the Switch over the years, which is kind of crazy and unusual in the modern console gaming universe. But the most recent Smurfs game is called Smurfs Dreams, released this October, and in my opinion is easily the best one. This is going to sound a little bit crazy, but it plays like a budget version of Super Mario 3D World and features 2-player local co-op throughout. This is more of a 3D platforming experience and takes place in a surreal, dreamlike universe, which allowed the developers to get decently creative. I know everyone fears a licensed tie-in game, I do too, but it is better than it has any right to be, and you'll just have to kind of trust me on that. Promenade got a decent amount of attention when it was released back in February for the Switch, but being an indie platforming game still ended up being overlooked by the Switch community when it was all said and done. This is an incredibly charming and feature-packed experience that kind of came out of nowhere. You'll play through a deceptively wide variety of levels, with each giving you a certain amount of puzzles or tasks to complete. Think of it as kind of like a 2D Super Mario 64, with each level containing X amount of stars to complete. The game is super impressive by the sheer variety of things you will do, despite its relatively simple presentation, and it's really just simply a joy to play throughout. So the Cat Quest games began back in 2017 with the most recent release Cat Quest 3 coming out this summer. Also releasing this year is the Furtastic Trilogy, a collection of all 3 of these games, and kind of flying under the radar as a physical release. The highlight in the package being, for me, Cat Quest 3, which is an awesome co-op RPG adventure game that highlights everything the first 2 games did so well. And if you don't want the full physical package with all 3 games, then at least check out Cat Quest 3, which in my opinion might be the best co-op game on the Switch this year, and we'll have to see once the year comes to a close. Snufkin Melody of Moomin Valley is a cozy narrative adventure game released all the way back in March. The game has a great little story where you try to restore the Moomin Valley universe with impressive storybook visuals and art style, but the use of musical instruments in the gameplay itself elevates beyond your average adventure game to one that really has, I would say it really has no big flaws. This is one of the best games of the year, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, you absolutely need to throw this on your eShop wish list to pick it up at some point. Another eShop game, the Lullaby of Life, released back in August and is kind of another music-based game that is worth your time. It's also an abstract puzzle game where you play as a little particle armed with the ability to play musical notes. You'll then use this ability to solve puzzles and just kind of generally explore the universe. It is probably the most simple game of anything on this list. It might not be the most universally appealing, but at least for puzzle fans out there, you should check it out. And with only one Switch review for this game on Metacritic, I definitely feel like it needs at least a little bit more attention. Alright, so this is kind of a weird one. Gylt was released exclusively a few years ago to Google's streaming gaming service, but finally saw a wide release this year, including the Switch. This is a stealth horror game that focuses on solving light puzzles and exploring the darkness in general. The game is kind of made for a younger audience, but is still quite creepy and tells a somewhat interesting story that I don't want to spoil. If you play a bunch of horror games, you might become a little bit bored with this one, but for those who want to try something a little creepy without the fears of a more mature horror game, it is a great experience that walks that line nicely. And last up on this list is Tchia. I believe that's how you say it, and this is a 3D adventure game that came out back in June. Full disclosure, I played through most of the Xbox version of the game and not the Switch one, simply because it was released on Game Pass, but by all accounts the Switch version holds up decently well. In this game, you'll be exploring an archipelago where you'll discover an interesting universe with a ton of gameplay to offer. It seems to be heavily influenced by Breath of the Wild, and that is obviously not a bad thing. I don't want to ruin any surprises, but a cool feature to this game is your ability to possess animals to solve puzzles or traverse the universe. It is one of those games where it is kind of fun just to explore and maybe even aimlessly walk around, but offers a ton more than that. It could make some top 10 best games of the year lists if you ask me, and is still pretty underappreciated as a more indie release. So yeah guys, definitely take a look at Tchia and the other 9 games on this list. Is there any game out there that you recommend? Leave it in the comments that you think deserves a little more attention from the 2024 best of the year list. But either way guys, we will catch you next time.